Have you ever really just looked at somebody? I mean, like, really looked at a person and you just look at them and you thinking, damn, your mama really should have swallowed you.
You are now listening to The Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast hosted by Kay on Spotify. A podcast aimed to uncover and share the stories behind heinous and insane acts that have been overlooked or overshadowed by mainstream media, getting justice for the voices that can't speak.
What's up, y'all? It's your girl Kay, and I am the host of The Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast. A podcast designed to focus on crimes committed in the Black community that you don't hear about in mainstream media, giving a voice to those victims that have otherwise been silenced. Today is the 21st episode, y'all. We the big 2-1 up in here. Y'all know that I had to give y'all something special. I hope y'all are ready for the turn up tonight, okay? I told y'all I was going to give y'all some fire. Like, seriously, thank you so much for 21 great episodes. Thank you. Like, y'all, I appreciate y'all so much for vibing with me and listening to the growth over these episodes. 21 episodes, and it's been nothing short of amazing. Like, there's been times where I wanted to quit. Y'all know this because the reviews were low as fuck, like submersible low. But, slowly and surely they're coming in little by little, and the streaming numbers are doing amazing. So I'm going to just keep doing what I've been doing and doing what I love. And, I am just so, so proud right now and excited for everything coming in the future. And, as time goes on, y'all know I got so much more stuff planned. Now, because it is the 21st episode, y'all know what that means when you turn 21, right? That makes you legal, baby, and that means you can drink. So for tonight, I'm popping a bottle of champagne because it's a celebration, bitches. Are y'all drinking? I hope y'all got a little bit of, spirit in your hands to partake in and help me celebrate such a great accomplishment because it's a celebrate. In the words of Mr. Brown from the great Tyler Perry, it's a celebrate. Can y'all tell? I've already been celebrating. And I got my popcorn and I put a little bit of M&Ms in it because I like that sweet and salty. I'm bougie with it tonight, just a little bit. Now, like I said, today's episode is going to be a little special because obviously, duh, turning 21. So I wanted to give you guys two episodes. Yes, you heard right. Two episodes back to back with it. Just call me Drake. Actually, you know what? Never mind. Don't call me that right now. Yeah, that wasn't a good comparison. But so you're gonna get an episode tonight, and then you're gonna get another episode in less than 48 hours. You're gonna get another episode on Thursday. And let me tell you, both of these episodes are heavy. Like, I mean severe, okay? So, just a heads up, the week of June 29th, there will not be a new episode because I will be on the islands on vacation, enjoying the sun on the beaches. So, y'all just gonna have to cuss me out and deal with it. I mean, y'all do that anyway, every episode. But I'll be back after July 6th. So, don't worry, y'all only got to go 1 week with no episode. At the most, maybe like 10 or 11 days. I promise I'll be back and I'll make sure that I bring, some bangers because I got a lot of surprises for when I come back. There's going to be a lot of changes and everything. I'm talking about like new intros and music and themes and sound effects and all of that. So I hope y'all are ready. All right. So, y'all ready to get into it? Y'all know what time it is. Let's get it. Now, I will go ahead and advise that this particular episode tonight is very graphic. And it also involves the rape and death of minor children. So do with that as you will. I'll try to give you, fair warning like I normally do and, tell you, okay, hey, skip ahead a couple of seconds or whatever. But just know that there's a lot of it, okay? So I hope y'all are ready. All right, let's get into it. This week's case involves Eugene Scott, victim, Vernita Wheat, victim, Annie Turks, a surviving victim, Tamika Turks, victim, Donna Williams, victim, Palmer and Marge Jones, both surviving victims, Virginia Temple, victim, Rochelle Temple, victim, Frank and Dorothy Duvendak, surviving victims, Millard and Catherine Gay, surviving victims, Tony Story, victim, Harry Walters, surviving victim, Marlene Walters, victim, Olin Carmichael Jr., surviving victim, Thomas Harris, accomplice, and the infamous murderers Alton Coleman and Denise Brown. Alton Coleman was born November 6, 1955, in Waukegan, Illinois, to Mary Bates. Unfortunately, Alton never knew who his father was because, well, the nigga just wasn't around. Like, homie was Casper, okay? Alton was the third child of five siblings. He had an elder brother named Donnie Bates, Clarence, Charles, and Danny. And then he had a younger sister by the name of Terry. Now, it's pretty much very safe to say that Alton had a really fucked up childhood. Like, his mother, Mary, wasn't necessarily all the way right in the head. So she was born in North Chicago, Illinois, and at 14 years old, she had gotten pregnant. Now, back then, if you got pregnant, you had to like hide your pregnancy. So they would like send you away for a while until you had the baby, and then boop, you just popped your ass back up, good as new. Like you ain't, let a whole baby out your twat, but okay. So Mary was shipped off to the Geneva State Training School for Girls in Geneva, Illinois, when she found out she was pregnant. And in 1945, she gave birth to her first child, which was Donnie Bates. Then, a short while later, she got admitted to the Dixon State Hospital in Dixon, Illinois, after she got arrested for supposedly spreading syphilis. Now, it just so happens that later on they found out she didn't actually have syphilis. Like, whew, could you imagine? But they ended up keeping her locked up in a mental, like, psychiatric hospital for like 2 more years after that. For what? No one knows. But Homegirl was in there for a good minute. In the early 1950s, Mary ended up meeting Herbert Coleman. He was a soldier from Oklahoma that was stationed near the base there in Highwood, Illinois. So the two met, and Mary was like, you know what? I'm trying to be with him for real. She threw that whop on him, and she left her son Donnie in Illinois with her family and decided to move to Oklahoma City to start her new life with Herbert. They get married and they ended up having two sons together, Charles and Clarence. Now, they stayed together for a while, and ultimately, Herbert decided that marriage it just wasn't necessarily the best thing for him to do when it came to Mary. Like, she had a lot of issues and was just on some crazy shit. So they ended up breaking up, and she moved back to Waukegan in either 1954 or 1955, not 100% sure. But she definitely was ready to get back. She was like, listen, I'm about to be for the streets. And just like she did with Donnie, she left Charles and Clarence, but she left them with their daddy in Oklahoma City. And she told him, nah, nigga, you wanted these kids, you gonna take care of these kids. I'm out. Honestly, though, looking at her history, that was probably the best thing she did for them babies. So she heads back to Waukegan, and when she gets back, she moves to Market Street, which was like a predominantly black neighborhood on Lake Michigan between Chicago and Milwaukee. It was pretty much like a rundown kind of neighborhood, though. Like I'm talking about wooden shacks between the railroad tracks, trash everywhere. There were garbage dumps everywhere, junkyards, just nasty. So the neighborhood where Mary lived on Market Street, it was also known as the Red Light District. Mary lived in a housing development called the Genesee Public Housing Projects. And according to a longtime resident, Henry Springs, who is now like 93 years old, and I'm pretty sure by the time this airs, homie is probably deceased, if not close to it. But that was no shade, sorry. But he said that white men would drive down the street and pimps would direct them to what houses to go to find the prostitutes, one of which was Mary's house. Y'all, this was definitely not the type of place where you want to raise children, okay? It was rat infested, funky, and Mary she just chilled. Like this was every day for her, you know. She was a gambler, a drinker, and a prostitute. One of the residents of the neighborhood, he was a pastor, Robert Evans. He stated in a 1994 affidavit that he knew Mary and he knew Alton and that he knew what kind of activities that, Mary got into. I guess this is where Casper came into play because Mary was out there tricking around and well, she ended up pregnant by the friendly ghost. Like nobody knows who Alton's daddy is. So she gets pregnant and on November 6th, 1955, she gives birth to her son, Alton Coleman. Literally, after she had Alton, she just decided, I don't want his ass. And what did she do? She threw him in the garbage can, like straight walked outside and threw him away on some losing Isaiah type shit. Only she ain't leave him to, come back and get him later, like, cause she was high, like in the movie. Nope. She threw his ass away like yesterday's trash, okay? Luckily, his grandmother went out there and got him. Now, don't get it twisted. Mary's mother, Alma Hosea, baby, she was not anything sweet, okay? Far from sugar and spice and everything nice and all of that. That woman was crazy. She was a bitch. She was one flew over the cuckoo's nest. This chick practiced voodoo and was known for putting spells on people. On top of that, she was married to this white guy named Bill, but she also had a nigga on the side and like she didn't even hide it. Like she was with this black guy, but still married to the white guy Bill, and she would have both of them in her bed together. And her husband Bill was like, shit, what I look like trying to change her. Now, according to Evelyn Bates, Bill was like this very easygoing man who never tried to change Alma's behavior. And on some real shit, honestly, to me, Alma was no better than her daughter. Like, I guess you could say she did good because, she saved Alton from the trash can. But on this one, the apple clearly does not fall far from the tree. And Alma was a bit of a gambler herself. When they would have card parties and, somebody else was winning the pot, she would leave the room. And after a minute, she would come back in and rub her hands like several times. And then all of a sudden, she's winning all the money. Now, this was according to Nancy Hoy, who would gamble with Mary a lot of the times. Clearly, M Mary having another child, it didn't slow her down in the least bit. So remember, she got Donnie, he's off living with relatives, and then Charles and Clarence are with their daddy in Oklahoma City. So it's just Alton for a minute. Now, Alton had to bear the brunt of everything. Mary was on welfare. She would feed her gambling habit and prostitution and all of that and barely take care of him. She played cards and was always shooting dice, according to, her oldest son, Donnie. And Homegirl would bet large amounts of money too. Like after she had Alton, she ended up getting pregnant again and she had a little girl named Terry. And at this point, Alton, he's off living with other relatives. He lived with his grandmother, Alma, majority of his life. And if he was with Mary, he was subject to a lot of abuse. One of the neighbors, the very same one, the pastor, said that he would see Mary use a chair, a baseball bat, her hands, anything that she could get her hands on to beat the living shit out of Alton. He said that there was one occasion where she grabbed Alton in front of some kids and just like shoved him to the ground. I mean, I don't think this woman had a motherly instinct in her body. Like, clearly she can make babies, but she damn sure didn't know how to take care of them. Because you pushing him down to the ground in front of his friends and always threatening to punish him over every little thing. So Alton was like, I gotta go. And he went to live with his grandmother, Alma Hosea. Now, when he lived with his grandmother, he would sleep on a pallet made out of like old blankets and rags on the floor that was at the back of the stove. She had this big, huge potbelly stove that he would sleep behind. And, even though it wasn't the best, it was still better than him living with his mother. Now, okay, here's some crazy shit. Mary and Alma, oh, they stayed beefing like all the time, like to the point that on one occasion, they drew guns on each other. Yes, mother and daughter out here pulling pistols on each other like it was some type of showdown, wild, wild west type shit. Like Mary's like, bitch, fuck you. And Alma's like, nah, bitch, fuck you. And they going at it, run up, get done up, bitch. Like, I'm sorry. I'm gonna do better. But on top of them beefing, Alma was very, very vocal to Alton about how she just did not give a fuck about Mary. Like she would tell him, "Oh, your mama ain't shit. She ain't want you. She threw you away. She don't give a fuck about you. I don't know why you tripping off of her, why she had you." All kinds of crazy stuff. He had to hear that on a daily. Like it was really sad. Needless to say, Alton had to endure not only the abuse from his mother, but the abuse from his grandmother too. He had to deal with the environment that he lived in. The kids in the neighborhood would tease him. His own grandmother nicknamed him Pissy Boy because of an incident where he peed on himself. And actually, you know what? Reading some of the articles and court documents, he actually peed on himself quite frequently up until he was like 12 or 13 years old. I don't know if it was a condition. I don't know if he was just lazy or what, but his grandmother nicknamed him Pissy Boy. So all the kids in the neighborhood, they're, ooh, Pissy Boy. Like, that's embarrassing. And, of course, he wouldn't just stand there and take it. He would, try to stand up for himself and fight back. He was, cussing the kids out and, going on about his business, trying to avoid it. There was this teacher at Lincoln Elementary School where Alton went to school and he attended second grade. And the teacher said that she remembered him by his nickname over his real name. And because he had like this really long hair that was longer than hers. Now, a lot of the kids that went to that school were black and from poor neighborhoods, much like Alton's. But he really stood out because he had those pretty eyes and that long hair, and the fact that his own teacher remembered him as Pissy Boy. Then his third grade teacher, she recalled about how his grandmother would send him to school wearing girls' pants, and the other kids teased him about that. This boy got taunted all the time. Like they set Alton up for failure. He was teased because his grandmother married this white man. He was teased for pissing on himself, for wearing girls' clothing. He went through pure hell. When he was with his mama, he's in an environment where you can see people having sex. His mama is turning tricks in front of him. Hell, this boy got arrested at 5 years old. The first time he saw his mama having sex, fucking off on some trick, he stole the dude's watch and gets arrested for that. I'm still tripping off the fact that this boy was arrested at 5 years old. Like, I have never heard of a child being arrested at such a young age. Five, and you're being arrested. And clearly, he got a temper problem because he's busting up his mama's house and, barely in double digits. Like, this shit is insane to me. Like, the only child that I could even think of that is that young was the boy that shot his teacher in Virginia. And I think he used his parents' gun or whatever, he used his mom's gun. And I want to say he was like 6 or 7, if I remember correctly, but 5 years old and you out here kleptoing and pickpocketing and everything and you get arrested. Like, that's, I'm sorry. That's just insane to me. But like I said, clearly he kept fucking up. By 11 years old, he had learned how to gamble. Now, when he would win money, he would keep it for himself. And honestly, I can't say I blame him because listen, his mama clearly didn't give a fuck about him. And so he would, spend the money buying drugs and alcohol, but his grandma Alma was not playing that. Boy, you better give me my motherfucking money. Like, if he didn't give his grandma some of his money, oh, she would beat him. Like, oh, boy, you in my house and you gambling and you winning money off of me? Yeah, you better run me them coins. But he would try to, hide it. He would try to keep the money for himself and he would get beat because of it. And, despite all of these things that were going on, he tried to have a childhood, but, going so many years with being teased and tortured, he felt like he had to be this tough guy, like this, really bad guy. When he was out with his boys, he would, pop his sister in the back of the head if she was around. She's younger and she doesn't, realize how dangerous her brother really is. He's knocking her upside the head. Yeah, y'all. Yeah, check my sister. I'm the tough guy. And so when he started school, he was living with his mom when he started high school. And he and some other boys around 15 and 16 years old, they would go and gamble and drink and everything. But by the time he finished like his first semester of his freshman year, he was pretty much done. Like, he just decided, listen, this shit ain't for me. So he dropped out. And from there, he made history as a notorious serial killer. Alton never really could hold down a job, so he did what he could to get by, by doing whatever it took. On December 27th, 1973, at just 18 years old, him and his boy, they hanging out, shooting the shit, chopping it up, whatever. And he's like, listen, my nigga, we gotta come up on some money quick. Like, a nigga broke and I need some bread, man. Like, what we gonna do? So they come up with a plan. Hmm. Let's rob a old lady. Like, we can easily get money like that, just knock them over the head one good time, then boom, money, baby. So they abduct a random 54-year-old woman named Eleanor McIntyre at gunpoint. But Alton took it a step further. Not only did they rob her, but Alton rapes her. When he was done, him and his boy, they steal her money and her car. Now, of course, he was caught, but this dude must have had like a great attorney or was just that good of a smooth talker because he got a plea negotiation to where he was only convicted of robbery. Like, fuck the rape, just robbery. So he was sent to Juliet Penitentiary. Unfortunately, while he was locked up, his mother, Mary Bates, died of breast cancer. The bad thing is, I have a feeling that she probably had it for a while and it went untreated because Mary didn't really strike me as the type to go to the doctor like that, except when she was giving birth. Like, I really feel like it went untreated and, she wasn't taking proper care of herself from the many years of drug and alcohol use and prostitution and all of that. So I'm wondering if, like, it was a situation where they could have caught it early enough and it could have been treated. But unfortunately, she passed. The sheriffs actually took him to his mother's funeral, which I think is pretty cool because now, yeah, that shit ain't happening. If you locked up now and you lose a loved one, oh, the fuck well. But he only ended up doing a couple of years for the robbery. He was paroled shortly after that, despite, committing a whole new crime. He gets paroled, and not long after, on September 13th, 1976, 17-year-old Sherry Patterson is driving her coworker Joy Edwards home. Now Joy spots Alton walking and they pull over and she's like, "Hey, you see my boyfriend?" Okay, so by her asking that, I don't know if she knew him, but it sounds like maybe she knew him. Like it was a random question to ask. So I'm thinking maybe she knew him. But he's like, nah, I ain't seen him, but can a nigga get a ride? So Sherry agrees and he gets in the car with the two of them. Now Sherry goes ahead and she drops Joy off first. That's where I'm like, why? Why did you do that? She dropped her off first. Once she does that, Alton is like, bet. He in the car by himself with her. And he's like, hey, you know what? Let's go hang for a little bit. Why don't you drive over here so we can, chop it up? Why don't you drive over here so we can kick it? Now, clearly, I'm using, lingo from today, but this was clearly back in the 70s. But, he convinces her to drive to this isolated area and then he drags her out of the car into this abandoned building where he rapes her. She goes straight to the police. And on September 14th, 1976, he gets acquitted by a jury trial because he claimed it was consensual. Now, the rape occurred the day before, and this was literally weeks, if that, after he got paroled. So, during the time frame that he was arrested, he was taken to Lake County Jail. During his incarceration, he gets that itch again. And on September 19th, 1976, less than a week after he got locked up, he ended up sexually assaulting three, not one, not two, but three fellow male prisoners that were between the ages of 18 and 19. Do y'all know this nigga only got convicted of battery? Like, you sexually assault three male inmates and all you get charged with is battery? But honestly, you know what? It's not surprising because how can you come forward and expect something to actually happen and to actually be done? So, once again, he pretty much got away with it. Another slap on the wrist. He gets hit with three charges of sexual deviation and got 6 months. Now, let me just say this. I think it's really fucked up that he got 6 months in jail for assaulting three male inmates, but was later on acquitted because of him actually raping a female. Not to say that one is more deserving of the other, not to say that, the three individuals in jail that were sexually assaulted did not deserve their justice because they did, and they did get justice, I guess, somewhat. But it is really fucked up that the only reason that he stayed in jail is because he sexually assaulted three male inmates. Like, had he not done that, he would have been out. So he's getting ready for his trial for Sherry. And like I said, he gets acquitted because he manages to convince the jury that the act was consensual. See, this is why women are afraid to come forward and speak up about what happens to them because of shit like this. Like, good God, I can only imagine how that young girl felt. Like, nigga, you got a guardian angel, some sick, twisted guardian angel looming over you or something. I don't know. Maybe it's his voodoo practicing grandmother that was creating some kind of spell. Now, he did have a little bit of good luck, I guess, because on July 1st, 1980, Alton actually settled down and fell in love. He married a woman by the name of Beverly Perkins. They had lived together for like 2 years with his grandmother. So he comes to her and he was like, listen, we gonna make this work, baby. It's me and you forever. Yeah, okay, well, forever was like a year. Probably because 10 days after they got married, yeah, Alton was on some shit. On July 11th, 1980, Alton goes to this disco and he meets this 22-year-old woman by the name of Dorothy Hawkins. Dorothy is in the Navy. Shout out to my military queens. Thank you for your service. But they hit it off, and she invites him to go to this picnic at the Grand Lakes Naval Station where she's, based. So they go and they hang out and they're having a good time. And she just happens to mention in conversation, you know, I like it here on the base and everything, but I'm trying to find a place off base where I can lay my head and, not have to worry about being around everybody all the time. And Alton takes this opportunity to his advantage. He tells her, "Yeah, I got some spots that's close by, and you could still get to the base and everything. I could show you a couple of apartment complexes." And she's excited about it. She's like, "Oh, really? Thank you. That'll be so great." So they get to driving, and he gets her to this industrial area of Waukegan. And as soon as he gets the opportunity, he rapes her both orally and vaginally. And then he just takes her back to her barracks like shit ain't happened. She reports it, and y'all know how it is with women in the military. They have to really fight. Like, I feel like women in the military have to fight harder than anybody to be believed. And that's exactly what happened here, because despite the fact that Dorothy identified Alton in a photo lineup, when it goes to pretrial, he gets acquitted again. But his wife Beverly, she's like, You know what? I don't know if I can do this. I ain't made for this. I'm not the hold you down while you do a bid type of chick." And she ran for the hills. Smart, cause girl, the fuck, ain't no way, ain't no way I'm gonna be with a nigga that's out here raping people, and I stick by you. Ooh, mm-mm. Nope, and all of nopedoms. So Alton is back to being a bachelor. Like, he's like, all right, fuck these bitches. It's back to doing what I do. And that's exactly what he did. He went and found his next victim. But it doesn't stop there, because September 28th, 1981, Alton and his boy Leonard Lynch, they out hanging around, and they come across two teenagers from this group home that ran away from Kenosha, Wisconsin, 16-year-old Lisa Mann and 14-year-old Lisa Pfeiffer. They see the two of them, and Alton lays on his little charm. Hey, what's going on, baby girl? How you doing? And the girls are all shy and whatnot. And so they ask Alton for a favor. Y'all think y'all could go into the liquor store and buy us some liquor? Okay, remember they 16 and 14. And Alton and Leonard, they like, hell yeah, because they know all they got to do is go buy this liquor. They know what's up. They know what's about to happen. So they go into the liquor store for the girls, and they get some little cheap booze. And then they go back to Leonard's apartment. And of course, you know what happens next. Lisa Mann gets raped. So Lisa goes to the cops, and she says that Leonard raped her while Alton was in the room with 14-year-old Lisa Pfeiffer. So, because of the fact that there wasn't really any proof that Lisa Pfeiffer and Alton had anything going on, the case was eventually dismissed. This will probably be the only time you hear me say this, but this was one of the few cases where there was absolutely no evidence. And Lisa Pfeiffer, she didn't say anything happened to her. She was like, "Listen, I was there. Yeah, I was in the room with him, but we ain't do shit." So that's probably the only time I can really give him any grace. But, I know that the judges in that town had to be pissed, because how the fuck does this man keep getting away with sexual assault and rape and literally just walking off scot free? But this is why his wife Beverly left him, because Alton testified at that Sherry Patterson case. Excuse me, not Sherry Patterson, but at the Dorothy Hawkins case. He testified that his wife was in the room when he had sex with her. That's how he got acquitted. Now, it's now 1982, and Alton is still doing his thing. He becomes the suspect in another rape, this time of a 15-year-old girl. Now, he strangled her and raped her, but it's not 100% sure if he actually did it. Like, there was never any full confirmation. So, this one was actually kind of more like a possibility, just never confirmed. But it was like there was strong evidence. They just could not 100% confirm it was him. And then in June and July of 1983, he gets hit with two charges for molesting his own 8-year-old niece, Melinda Snow. Remember, he's got a little sister, Terry Coleman. She's all grown up now, and she's a mother. And her daughter, Melinda comes to her, and she's like, "Mommy, Uncle Alton was touching me. He kissed me and he touched my private part." And Terry is pissed. Nigga, my daughter, all the shit that you've done, I've supported you, and now you at my daughter? Are you fucking kidding me? How the fuck you gonna touch my daughter, bro? She presses charges. But, again, y'all know what happens. It gets thrown out and the case gets dismissed because of insufficient evidence. And then Terry ends up switching up her entire story, which was bizarre. She switched everything up, recanted everything altogether, and refused to help the prosecution at all. And this is where I start to think,
No, you done fucked up, right? No, 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 no. You know you done fucked up, right?
this nigga should have been locked up. Why in the hell did you switch up on your daughter, your brother? Like why would you do that? He needed to be behind bars. Throw away the key. Nigga, everybody can't be lying on you. It's not always consensual. I get it if maybe one case was wrong on you, but every time you turn around, somebody is charging you with rape. Somebody is accusing you of rape and molestation, both women and men. And every time you're getting away with it, like, how the fuck is this possible? What the hell is wrong with the judicial system? But lo and behold, it finally caught up to him because on February 26, 1984, Alton is hanging out and he meets this lady named Dorothea Thompson. Now, when he meets her, she's waiting on her daughter, Shalandra, who is 14, to get off of work from Burger King. And Alton, he uses his charm and he tells her, well, I do got some work opportunities if you want. I can bring you some applications. And Dorothea believes him. She gives him her address and her telephone number. And so a couple of days later, Alton uses it and he goes over to Dorothea's house. He got a plan in his head, like, yeah, I'm about to get her ass. But she ain't there. It's only Shalandria there. And Alton is like, even better. So he tells her, well, I was here to drop off this job application to your mom, if you don't mind. And she don't know any better, so she let him in, which was the biggest mistake. As soon as he gets through the door, this is where you may want to skip about 15 seconds or so. But as soon as he gets through the door, he rapes her at knife point. After he finishes, this sick motherfucker makes her write in his journal. And she writes the words, this is what she's being forced to write. Al, I really enjoyed tonight and we must do this again real soon. Teardrop, love Shalandra Thompson. P.S. Let this be our little secret. He forced her to write that. She still went to the cops and told her mom and everything. And when he was arrested in North Chicago, Illinois, he gets arraigned, but he flees. Like after he gets arraigned, he takes off because he knows the walls are closing in on him. Like it's only but so many times that you can use this whole consensual thing. And even if you were consensual, dude, yes, she's 14. So he takes off. He's out here free on the streets and he decided, fuck it, I'm out. So he skips town. But that didn't slow him down. This pretty Rico Suave looking ass dude was laying some serious Mac down. Ladies just couldn't get enough of the pretty eyes and the long hair. And it was one lady in particular that was head over heels for him. The Bonnie to his Clyde, 21-year-old Deborah Brown. Deborah Denise Brown was born November 11th, 1962 in Waukegan, Illinois to Lottie Mae Brown. Now, she was one of 11 children. Oof, Jesus Latter-day Saints, 11. Ooh. She was one of 11 children and she grew up in a two-parent household. Okay, look, just because it's a two-parent household does not necessarily mean it's the best kind because her father was abusive and he drank a lot of alcohol and did a lot of drugs. Deborah was borderline mentally retarded because she suffered some head trauma as a kid, no doubt by her father, because if he was hitting her mother, I can almost bet he was hitting them kids too. There's not as much background detail on Deborah like it is on Alton, and it does show that she had been diagnosed with DPD or dependent personality disorder. For those of you that don't know, dependent personality disorder is a mental health condition that involves an excessive need to be taken care of by others, specifically for emotional and physical needs. So, in layman's terms, this person that has DPD is basically extremely needy or clingy. Shit. If that's the case, I know a lot of people that got DPD and do not give two fucks. Probably me included. I really think at one point I may have had DPD then. But anyway, it's 1983 and Deborah is at a bar in Waukegan one evening when she meets Alton Coleman. The two of them hit it off, and Deborah is head over heels in love. She is seriously on some listen, my man, my man, my man, okay? But yeah, small thing here. Deborah happened to be engaged to somebody completely different when she met Alton. But apparently he put that wham bammy on her because she basically was like, "Psha, fuck that nigga." So she broke it off with her fiance and she and Alton started living their life together. She moved into the home that he shared with his grandmother. And at this point, Alton was actually working for a bit as a nurse and a recreation supervisor at a Veterans Administration hospital in North Chicago. And during this time, Deborah's at home taking care of Alma. Alton's out working, making the money. Despite being in a new relationship and having the man of her dreams, Deborah really didn't have that much freedom. Like Alton had been very abusive to her. If she tried to leave the house without him, he would beat her. And she felt like she needed him. He preyed on that. He knew that she was needy and relying on him. He would have her drinking and getting high, smoking weed, doing cocaine. He basically became her master and she did whatever he said. When they would be out together, he was the leader. She would walk behind him and kind of like hold her head down. He would just randomly hit her just because, scratching her face and scarring her up. But then in that very same breath, here he go turning around. Oh, baby, you know I love you. Girl, I want to be with you. You going to be my wife. There's nobody else for me but you. Boy, bye. Okay, so remember, he met Deborah after he got in trouble for that last case with Shalandra Thompson. And so he came to her one day and he tells her, "Look, baby, some shit is going on right now. We gotta go. So yeah, I need to know, is you with me or is you against me? Cause cops closing in on me." And Deborah, she's wanting to be, supportive of her man. So she's like, "Baby, I'm here for you. I love you. I'm going to rock with you. We got this." And so he tells her, "All right, we're going to get up out of here." And she and Alton left. And from there, it was 53 days of hell and torture. After leaving Waukegan, Alton and Deborah, they made their way to Kenosha, Wisconsin. Why they went to Wisconsin, who knows? Now, this was in May of 1984, and Deborah was still being very much the doting and devoted girlfriend slash fiance. She calls herself the wife, but we all know they ain't even married. But they're in Kenosha, Wisconsin when Alton meets a woman named Juanita Wheat. He introduces himself as Robert Knight and starts working his charm on her. And Juanita had a 9-year-old daughter named Vernita. I think this is probably one of them situations where they combine the parents' names because her name is Juanita and you got a daughter named Vernita. So I'm wondering if maybe the dad's name was like Vernon or something. I don't know. But I think it would be dope if they did that. Like that would be real cute. Anyway, okay, back to the story. Vernita, she's a cute little girl, and Alton meets Juanita under this alias of Robert. And Juanita, she's definitely feeling him, so much so that she invites him over for dinner. And he goes to her house and he meets 9-year-old Vernita and her 7-year-old son, Brandon. So Alton spent the next few weeks hanging out over at the house, coming over for dinner, gaining her trust. And after a few weeks of all of this, he tells her mom, "Hey, you know what? I got this stereo that you can have if you want it. I'm gonna take Vernita with me so she can carry the speakers." And Juanita, she's like, "Okay," because she's thinking they're gonna be right back. Okay, I'm sorry, but there are so many holes and moments where I'm wondering, why would you trust uh you don't know this man from a can of paint. How is it that this man is around your kid so fast, trusting him enough to take care of your child out of your eyesight and be alone with him when you don't know this man from Adam? And I guess after a few, she realized her mistake because on May 29th, 1984, Alton takes Vernita under the guise of, "Oh, we just gonna go get the stereo and the speakers." But he takes her to the store and Juanita never sees her again. He and Deborah take her all the way to Waukegan, Illinois. When she realizes that her daughter is gone, she contacts the authorities and she reports her baby girl missing. "Y'all gotta help. Y'all gotta help me find my daughter. He took my daughter. He took my daughter." And FBI agents, they start investigating when they realize that Alton is the one that has her. These FBI agents been watching his ass for a minute. One of the agents that was doing the investigation was Berdina Passanelli. She had gotten real tight with Juanita and had been there with her through pretty much everything. When they, started showing her the different mug shots, she points out Alton and she's like, his name is Robert Knight. Who is Alton Coleman? And they have to fill her in on who Alton really is. And y'all, she was sick to her stomach. Like, you mean to tell me I've had my child around a creep, a pedophile all this time? A customer at the local 400 club testified that a black man and Vernita entered the establishment at approximately 11:35 p.m. on May 29th, 1984, and the man immediately went to the police. A few minutes later, he said that he saw a cab come and pick them up, and they were gone. The FBI, they learned a lot about Alton and, the places that he used to go gamble, how often he took cabs, where his grandmother lived, which was easy because he had spent majority of his, childhood in her home. So they issue a federal warrant for his arrest for kidnapping. Now, as to why Alton and Deborah went back to Waukegan, knowing that he was on the run from a case, is beyond me. I'm thinking that it had something to do with that trial for Shalandra Thompson, and that's why he used Waukegan. The timelines are kind of like making sense to me because he's got to go to trial for this Shalandra Thompson case, but at the same time, he done took this girl from, Wisconsin back to Waukegan. So I'm thinking maybe it was easy for him to dump her there because he was already there. I'm trying to connect the dots on that. That's the only thing that makes sense to me. So Alton and Deborah weren't in Waukegan long because on May 31st, 1984, Alton meets a man named Robert Carpenter. And he befriended him and they became cool, cool enough that Robert offers to let Alton spend the night. Now, the court documents, they don't say if Deborah was with him during this time, but Alton definitely obliged the invitation. He spends the night at Robert's house, and the next day he goes to his new friend and he's like, "Hey, you think I could borrow your car? I wanna run to the store real quick." And Robert, he's trusting. His friend is cool, or so he thinks. So he's completely unsuspecting. Sure, you can borrow it. No problem. He lets Alton borrow his car, and Alton takes it and never comes back. But luckily, Robert is not attacked and he's able to live to tell the story because clearly this dude is all over the place. Alton and Deborah, they're making their way around the country in the stolen car, and they decide to make their way to Gary, Indiana. Now, these are some of the most random places. Like, I really wonder how they just picked where they were going to go. Did you just point to something on the map and say, let's go here? But while they're in Gary, Indiana on June 18th, 1984, Alton and Deborah, they're walking, no doubt, to find someone to jack since they ditched the car. And they find themselves walking down the road by this park. And at this time, 9-year-old Annie Hillard and her 7-year-old niece, Tamika Turks, were running an errand for Annie's mother. As they're walking, Alton and Deborah happen to see the two girls. And Alton, he's excited. He's like, "Hey, baby, yeah, yeah, I want them two girls. Go ahead and, go get them for me. Go get them to come over here. Like, let's go get them." And Deborah does exactly what she's told. She's got a bag of clothes in her hand, and so she approaches Annie and Tamika. And she's like, "Hey girls, where y'all going?" And the girls tell her that they're going to the store. And so she tells them, "Hey, I got these clothes if y'all want. They brand new. Y'all are gonna love them. You want to check them out?" And the girls, they're young. They don't know any better. And this is the early 80s. I don't even know if they had stranger danger back then like that. Like, at least that's what I'm telling myself because I'm like, everybody is just so trusting. So Deborah, she convinces them to follow her to like this wooded area. They walked for 40 minutes to get to this wooded area. Okay, warning, this is where you may want to skip ahead again about 45 seconds or so because it gets a little graphic. So once they get the girls in the woods, they throw the girls to the ground, and Alton, he just starts ripping Tamika's clothes from her body, using it, tearing it into little rags and strips to tie her up, and he starts raping her. The entire time he's beating her and strangling her and raping her young 7-year-old defenseless body. She's crying out for help. She's crying for her mother, for anyone to help save her. And Alton silences her by taking his belt and wrapping it around her throat to shut her up. And then Deborah, she's a few feet away, tying Annie up while Alton continues to rape Tamika. And then when he's done with her, they both turn their attention to Annie, and both he and Deborah make her perform sexual acts on them. She's forced to perform oral sex on these two sick motherfuckers while she's being beaten. Like, I'm sorry y'all, but this is sick. Like, it is literally making my stomach hurt right now. Y'all are forcing a 9-year-old girl. What the hell? And the entire time she's crying for help. Somebody, please help me. Please help me. But all Alton does is strangle her and punch her and kick her along with his girl. The same way that he did with Tamika, Alton tries to strangle Annie with his belt and he strangles her until she's unconscious. They think she's dead, you know. And then all of a sudden they hear this moaning coming from the area where they left Tamika and they see she's coming too. She's not actually dead. So what do? They go over to her and literally stomp her. He's strangling her, jumping on her, breaking her small, brittle bones until she dies. And when they're done, they just get up and leave like nothing happened. It's the next day, June 19th, 1984, and Annie, she eventually comes to and she starts crying for help, but like she's really hurting and in severe pain. A nearby pedestrian sees her and goes to get law enforcement. And so the cops get there and they find Tamika Turk's partially decomposed body, dead. And while they're finding Tamika's body that same day in Waukegan, Illinois, another body is found. Alton's first victim, Vernita Wheat. Her body was discovered in an abandoned building that was 4 blocks from Alton's grandmother's apartment. It had been badly decomposed, and the cause of her death was ligature strangulation. And if this wasn't enough, once Alton and Deborah leave Tamika and Annie, they continue their little lover stroll and they meet Donna Williams, a 25-year-old woman from Gary, Indiana. She was a beautician that was known for slaying some hair, which I can appreciate because Lord knows I need to get these tracks done. Like I stay getting my hair done, so I appreciate beauticians. But they introduced themselves as a couple named Phil and Pat from Boston. And Donna, she's very warm. She invites them to church and they attend. But later that evening, her friends are looking for her because she's supposed to help with, the chair breakdown and everything. But Donna can't be found anywhere. It's because Phil and Pam, aka Alton and Deborah, had kidnapped her and stolen her car. They ditched the car on the west side of Detroit and just kept trucking. On June 24th, they meet a 28-year-old woman from Detroit. Now, her name was not given, but they kidnapped her at knife point in front of her home and they demand her to drive them to Ohio. But this woman was smart, okay? She gets into that car and she's driving them to where they demanding her to go. But she's like, nah, y'all not about to get me. Y'all ain't about to make me y'all's next victim. She crashes her car into a parked truck, jumps out, and runs for it. And by the grace of God, she made it. She survived. But Alton and Deborah, they ain't worried. They just say, all right, no problem. We can think of something else. And 4 days later, on June 28th, 1984, they break into the house of Palmer and Marge Jones, which was an elderly couple in Dearborn Heights, Michigan. Okay, so although they didn't kill them, they were beaten badly. They tied them up, and Alton and Deborah robbed them and stole their car, leaving them to try to get free, which obviously, they eventually did. Meanwhile, on June 26th, an anonymous phone call comes in to Wayne State University campus security. So this leads the police to an abandoned building near the campus, and the police find the decomposing body of a woman named Donna Williams. Y'all see how these are overlapping each other? Like they just dropping bodies like they FedEx packages. Her mother, Donna Williams' mother, Zenota, had to identify her body. Donna's car was found a few blocks away on the west side of Detroit, Michigan. And in that car, they found Alton's fingerprints and Deborah's fake ID. And now the cops, they like, all right, well, clearly we know who did this. We gon' get his ass. But they had no idea where the two were. There were hundreds of calls coming in with sightings of the two of them, but none of them really checked out like that. Alton and Deborah, they decided to lay low for a minute and they kind of stayed underground, but they couldn't stay hidden for too long because they always got that itch. Alton always wanted to do some extra shit. July 2nd, 1984, they meet a woman named Mary Phillips, and while they're hanging out with her, they hear her talking about 55-year-old Marion Gaston. These two live together. And Alton, he's getting excited. All right, it's time to hit another lick. Come up on some more coins. So they go over to the house and break in. They tie them up, gag them, and beat them with a wrench until they were almost dead. They ransack the house. They take everything they can of value. And then they take Marion's car and they book it to Ohio. Now, remember, while they're headed to Ohio on July 11th, 1984, Donna Williams was found inside that abandoned building near the campus where her car was. She had been strangled, but they couldn't tell if she had been sexually assaulted because her body was so badly decomposed. Like bodies, again, like I said, they dropping them like FedEx packages. They get to Ohio and they're there for a few days. On July 5th, 1984, they're in Toledo where they meet a pastor by the name of Reverend Ernie Jackson. And pastor's wife, she had, her friend Virginia Temple come over to hang out. So they're actually staying with the pastor when Virginia came over to visit. Virginia is all but maybe 30 years old and, was just the pastor's friend supposedly. And this is what, Alton liked. He liked her. He wanted her. So the next day on July 6th, they get her address and Alton and Deborah, they go to the house where Virginia lived with her five children: 10-year-old Rochelle, 6-year-old Raymond, 5-year-old Michael, 3-year-old Kimberly, and 1-year-old baby Angela. Virginia had been divorced for like a year from her kid's father and had planned to attend the University of Toledo to finish her undergraduate degree. And, she's very pleasant, very warm and welcoming. Her sister Dolores Shy said that she was the type of woman that would give the shirt off of her back. She's the mother of five, and Rochelle, being the oldest, kind of had extra responsibility, I guess you could say. So when Alton and Deborah show up, she invites them in for dinner. And who are these two to turn down a free meal? They take their little hungry, happy asses right on inside, and they're having themselves a good little time. They eat and they end up spending the night. Again, ain't no way in hell y'all crashing at my spot with my kids, couple or not. Nah, y'all better take y'all asses to Red Roof Inn or Motel 6 or something. They'll leave the light on for you. But I keep telling myself that because it's the 80s, this is why it was so easy to be so trusting. So they spend the night, and the next thing you know, like early, I'm gonna say, I think the report said it was like maybe midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. They get up and they strike. Alton grabs Virginia and her oldest daughter and drags them into the basement of her home. He beats and strangles them and then stuffs their bodies into crawl spaces with Deborah's help. It wasn't 100% confirmed that Virginia was raped, but it was damn sure confirmed that Rochelle was raped because she had blood coming from her 10-year-old vagina. What? These people ransacked the house and took all of the clothes and all of the jewelry. But of course, they bailed, leaving the little kids behind to fend for themselves, not knowing where their mother was or where their big sister was. And then the next morning, Dolores, which is Virginia's big sister, she wakes up and her mom, Edith Harris, is racing up the driveway. And she's like, listen, something's wrong. Virginia's missing. I went to go pick her up and she didn't answer the door. I could hear Raymond, but he wouldn't open the door. Raymond is her 6-year-old son. Remember that. So they go to the house, and when they get there, their aunt sees blood on the floor through the window. They could see from the window that the house was tore up. Know what that means? Call the cops. The cops get there and they get inside the home and they find the four children alone, scared. Virginia and Rochelle's bodies were discovered in the crawl space, and Dolores and her mother, they're devastated. And this set the FBI into motion. Ever since the FBI put that warrant out for Alton for the kidnapping, they have been trying their damnedest to track him. So they said, all right, let's put his black ass on that most wanted list. And Alton is placed on the FBI's most wanted list. He was actually number 11, which was like really rare because, they focused on the top 10. But with him being placed on number 11, it was because of the amount of killings that he had done in such a, short time span. He basically was like a special edition. But Alton didn't care about that. That shit wasn't going to stop him. Him and Deborah, they're, going to keep robbing and keep killing and keep getting high. After they left Virginia and Rochelle in that crawl space, they run off and they meet Mr. Frank Duvendak. He's standing outside of his house that he shared with his wife Dorothy, and Alton decides, all right, I'm gonna improvise this shit a little bit. He tells him that, he's buying a car down the street and, he just needs to see if he can use the telephone real quick. And Mr. Duvendak, he's a retired Toledo public school administrator. So he lets him in. Once they get inside, Alton asks him for a stick of gum. And when Frank turns his back, Deborah reaches in her purse real quick and she's like, "Here, babe, take this." And she gives Alton the gun. They take advantage of the fact that, he's an elderly man and he's in his 70s. They tie him up, they gag them with tissue paper. They stole $190 and their car. I guess they felt like Toledo was too hot because the next day Alton gets that itch again and he's like, you know what, baby, let's go do some driving. This time they make their way to Cincinnati, Ohio. Tony's story is reported missing by her parents no sooner than them getting into Cincinnati. Now, she was 15 years old and was last seen leaving her house on July 11th, 1984, to head to school for a computer class when she was approached by an African American male and woman that matched the description of Alton and Deborah. Now, coincidence? I don't think so, because about a week later, on July 19th, her badly decomposed body was discovered in a vacant apartment building. She had been strangled, and because of the decomposition, they couldn't tell if she had been raped, but federal agents only assumed she had because of his previous MO. On July 9th, 1984, they backtrack and they go to Reverend and Mrs. Millard Gay in Dayton, Ohio. They stayed with them and went with them to a church service in Lockwood, Ohio, and everything was good. The next day, Reverend Millard, he takes Alton and Deborah to downtown Cincinnati again and drops them off where, he's thinking he's doing the Lord's work, but he drops them off in Cincinnati. They steal some damn bicycles and cycle into Norwood, Ohio on July 13th. While they're cycling and riding their bikes that they stole, they go to the house of Harry and Marlene Waters. Now, Harry and Marlene had put out an advertisement for this camper that they were selling. So when Alton saw it, he tells Deborah, "Hey, baby, I got a new victim for us." So they go to the house under the guise of wanting to purchase the camper. The couple lets them in, Harry and Marlene, and Alton and Deborah sit down on their couch and, they're talking about the title to the camper and everything. And Alton picks up a candlestick. "Oh, yeah, this looks nice. This wooden candlestick here. Yeah, this looks real nice." And he's admiring it and everything and talking about how great it looks. And then bam, he hits Harry on the back of the head with it. The blow from the candlestick was so hard that it took a chunk of bone. The couple, they ended up getting bound with electrical cords. Marlene's hands were bound behind her back, and Harry had handcuffs behind his back, and they were beaten badly. Alton and Deborah, they run off. Hours later, their 19-year-old daughter, Sherry, comes home and she sees that the house has been ransacked. Shit is thrown everywhere. Of course, Alton and Deborah, they've taken all of their belongings. And so Sherry, she's in the house and she's like, "Oh my God." She looks over and she sees her mother, Marlene, has a bloody sheet covering her head. She already knows it's the worst. So she calls 911 and she tries to, free her father. They're taken to the hospital, but Marlene died from multiple blunt force injuries to the head. Alton and Deborah had beaten her with a crowbar and pliers and everything they could pretty much get their hands on. Marlene had been struck in the head 20 to 25 times, 12 lacerations, some of which were made with a pair of like vice grips that covered her face and scalp. The back of her skull was smashed into pieces, y'all. Part of her skull and brain were missing. And one of the most damning pieces of evidence was the bracelet of Virginia Temple. How about it was found underneath Marlene Waters? Like at this point, they not even hawking what they steal unless they're just, deciding it to keep, to deciding to keep it for themselves like it's some sick, twisted, trophy or something. I don't know. But the crime scene was so bad that they said the hall and the living room was and the basement were splattered with blood. There were fragments of broken soda bottles with Alton's fingerprints that were found in the living room. Strands of Marlene's hair were found on a bloodstained rug, and footprints from two different pairs of shoes were found in the basement. And of course, their car, which was a Plymouth Reliant, was gone. Okay, so Harry was semi-conscious and taken to the hospital. And once he was kind of able to really talk, he told the authorities who it was that attacked them in their home: Alton and Deborah. Knowing that the feds were on his ass, they decided to truck it to Kentucky. Every time a body would pop up, the feds would have just missed him. Like, this nigga was slick. So after a few days, Alton ends up linking up with his boy from back in the day, this dude named Thomas Harris. And they decided that they were just going to switch out and get another car to make it a little bit easier. So they going around and they driving, and they see this college professor named Olin Carmichael Jr. He's at a hotel. So they roll up on him and they kidnap him and decide to call his wife for a ransom. Threw his ass in the trunk of his own car and then called his wife and was like, "Hey, we got your husband. If you don't give us this money, he gonna die, bitch." And of course, Mrs. Carmichael, she's scared as hell. "Please don't hurt my husband. I'll pay whatever you ask. Just please don't hurt him." And this is music to Alton's ears. "All right, then, meet us at this location in 1 hour." "Okay, I will. Just please don't hurt my husband." So she agrees and she goes to the meeting spot like she's instructed. But Alton and Deborah never show up. Nope. Instead, they keep driving. They drive to McCabe Park in Dayton, Ohio, and they leave Olin in the trunk of his car and dip out. Olin, he's banging and banging on the trunk. "Help! Somebody help! Help me!" And eventually, he's found alive in the trunk of his car. Lucky him, because a lot of these people are not making it, y'all. Like, ooh, he's lucky. It was something about Ohio that they just couldn't stay away from. And that was part of their mistake. They couldn't stay out of their familiar zones. After they ditched Olin on July 17th, Alton and Deborah go back to Reverend Miller Gay's house. Keep in mind that this is a 79-year-old man, okay? Also, keep in mind, he and his wife, Catherine, had already met them before. They didn't know who they were then. Oh, but when Alton and Deborah popped back up, the good Reverend definitely knew who he was then. The good Reverend, oh, he was like, no, you don't. I know exactly who you are. You ain't coming in here. And Reverend Gay was not about to just let somebody come up in his house and take what he and his wife had worked so hard for. Absolutely not. He got to scrapping with Alton. But again, he's 79, so the fight didn't really, wasn't really a fight. It didn't really last too long. And Alton is all of, 5'9" and quick and everything. So he tells the pastor, "Bruh, I ain't gonna kill you. Calm the fuck down before I gotta fuck you up." And the pastor is questioning him: "Son, why are you doing this? Why are you out here hurting innocent people?" But Alton ain't phased. He ain't caring. He like, "Look here, pastor. Normally we would kill you and your wife, but you're a pastor, so I'm gonna let y'all live." And he was telling the truth, but it didn't stop him, however, from pistol whipping the pastor for challenging him and basically telling him about himself. So he instructs Deborah to tie them up, and she complies. He tries to strangle the pastor's wife, Catherine, but he wasn't really too successful. And Deborah, she's kind of, getting a little paranoid. She's like, "Okay, baby, we gotta go. We gotta go. Like, they know who we are. We gotta go." So they grab the keys, and Deborah thinks they about to leave, but Alton, he still is something fucking with him. He's like, "Nah, I want to kill this bitch." So he takes his gun and he tries to shoot Catherine, but it malfunctions. Baby, when I say God looks after his own, if that ain't proof, I don't know what is. You tried to strangle this woman, she survived. You tried to shoot her, your gun malfunctions. Baby, God is trying to tell you something. So finally, Alton listens to Deborah and they dip and they head back towards Evanston. Thank God the wife and the pastor and his wife, I'm sorry y'all, I told y'all I've been sipping on this champagne. But the pastor and his wife survive, and when the cops get there, they find clothing from Virginia Temple at their house. Why are they holding on to Virginia's shit is crazy. Like that's so fucking weird to me. If you need to be getting rid of evidence, not holding on to it like some weird treasured keepsake. Like the fuck? So later on July 19th, 1984, they drive the pastor's station wagon to a car wash where they plan to ditch it, and they meet Eugene Scott, another elderly black man. He's 79 years old. They stole his car, and his body was found outside of a ditch in Indianapolis, Indiana. His hands had been slashed, and he had 4 bullet holes in his head from a 38 caliber handgun. The feds were hot on their asses. An APB was put out for Eugene's car, and when the cops found it, they found way more than that. They hit the jackpot. In Mason Park in Evanston, Illinois, an old classmate from Alton's old neighborhood pulls up to this red light. And they sitting there chilling, waiting on the light to change. And they look over and they see Alton and Deborah's asses crossing the street. So old boy is like, oh shit, that's Alton. Yo, this nigga been all over the TV. They looking for him. So he watches them walk towards the park, cross the street. He was like, damn, ah shit, I gotta call the cops. So he goes to his nearest phone, he calls the cops, and he gives them a description of the 2 people he just saw. Police officers, they're, going to the area. They go to Mason Park in Evanston, Illinois, where they see Alton and Deborah sitting on some bleachers. Now, one of the things that the 2 had been doing was switching up their clothing. They would like change t-shirts and hats every few blocks. I don't get that concept because that's not going to change your physical appearance just because you're changing your clothes. Like, dummy, you still have the same face. So it just so happens that there were 2 sergeants driving by in the area. So they turn around and they head towards the park too. They go after Alton first, and Deborah's like, well, gotta go. That's my cue. I'm out. So she starts walking the opposite direction towards the rear of the park. But the cops, they end up stopping her and they approached her for questioning. And so they got both of them at this point. These 2 introduced themselves once again as Pat and Pam. And then Deborah ended up giving another name. She called herself Denise Johnson. But of course, that ain't flying with the cops at this point. They both get patted down and they find a loaded revolver in Deborah's purse and a steak knife that's hidden in the boot of Alton Coleman. So the 2 of them were officially arrested without incident, and the 53 days of terror are over. They take them down to the precinct and fingerprint them and everything, and that's when their true identities were revealed. And oddly enough, Alton, he real cocky, like real cocky. Yeah, I got tired. I ain't feel like practicing voodoo. That's why y'all couldn't catch me for so long. I was so tired, so that's why y'all caught me. This dude. And Deborah, she wasn't any better in the interrogation. Her mother spoke up and said about, how her daughter was under Alton's thumb and how her IQ was low and how she barely, answered any questions. But she definitely was talking. About a week after they got arrested, more than 50 law enforcement officials from various states where they had committed their crimes were coming after them. Illinois, Wisconsin, Michigan, Indiana, Kentucky, and Ohio, they all met up to plan a strategy for prosecuting the 2 of them. All of the states except Michigan have the death penalty. It was literally like a bidding war on who was going to get all of them. Who was going to be the ones to prosecute them? It was like, I mean, some crazy shit. They were like, no, we want them. We want them. We want it. No, prosecute these niggas over here. Like, everybody was trying to get in. It was like some good ass, let's make a deal kind of shit. They all wanted to be the ones to say, we got the serial killer, we got the dynamic duo. Lake County DA Fred Foreman from Illinois was like, nah, we want him first. I've been in court with this man before and I want to bring his black ass back. So they separated the two of them in the precinct. Deborah immediately invokes her rights to remain silent and asks for an attorney. The FBI agent kept asking her questions about her identity, her name, her age, her date of birth, address, something. And when it came time for her to be transported for federal lockup, she starts singing like a bird, talking to the agents on the way to Chicago. She was advised of her rights when she got to the federal building, and she refused to sign the waiver, but she did agree to talk to officers as long as she could, stop whenever she wanted to. For about 2.5 hours, she talked to the officers and talked about the crime spree in detail. She tells them everything. And then she says, "Oh, I want an attorney." And even though she supposedly had DPD, she was smart because she asked for an attorney after she told them everything. So later, when she went to trial, she and her attorney protested that her Fifth Amendment right had been violated because the authorities continued to interrogate her after she asked for an attorney. The trial court actually ruled in her favor and said that the Evanston detective did violate her rights, so everything that she talked about in questioning was inadmissible. That's some slick shit. Now, what she wasn't counting on, though, was that the confession that she gave to the authorities in Chicago was admissible because she did that before she requested an attorney. Now, that didn't mean because she was found guilty of the rape and murder of Tony Story in Cincinnati, Ohio, and Marlene Walters, excuse me. I gotta stop drinking, y'all. Let me stop drinking for the rest of this episode. So basically, they said she wasn't responsible for the rape and murder of Tony Story or the murder of Marlene Walters in Norwood. Those were the two that she was found guilty of. My bad. She was found guilty of those two. She was not found guilty for the murders of Virginia and Rochelle Temple in Toledo. That was solely Alton. But she was damn sure found guilty for the rape and murder of Tony Story and Marlene Walters. Alton Coleman was convicted of 2 counts of aggravated murder, for which he was sentenced to death in Dayton, Ohio. He was also convicted of attempted aggravated murder and sentenced to 7 to 25 years. Then he was convicted of aggravated burglary and sentenced to 10 to 25 years, and aggravated robbery sentenced to another 10 to 25 years. Deborah was sentenced to life in prison and she had to serve 20 years before parole eligibility for the aggravated murder charge. She got 10 to 25 years for the attempted aggravated murder charge, 10 to 25 years for the aggravated robbery charge, and 10 to 25 years for the aggravated burglary charge, all to be served consecutively. When they asked her account that occurred on May 15th, 1985, when Marlene was killed, she was like, yeah, I was high off my ass on weed and cocaine. I don't really remember. I don't think I did anything. I don't remember much. Alton acted like he ain't know what the fuck they were talking about. He was deny, deny, deny. Okay. So both she and Alton were convicted and sentenced to death by the Honorable Judge Richard Niehaus. And during sentencing, Deborah actually sent a note to the judge that presided over her case about her involvement with Tamika Turks. She sent a note that read, "I killed a bitch and I didn't give a damn. I had fun out of it." Yeah, that'll really make the judge say, "You know what? Let's release her." She was sent to the Ohio Correctional Institution in Dayton, Ohio, and for a while she was, real thugga thugga about it. But eventually, time started getting on her ass, and she started to show remorse for her crimes, and she even apologized to the victims' families in a video that she made in 2005. Now, once they got convicted and, incarcerated, Alton started working on appeals. His case was sent to the U.S. Supreme Court several times between 1985 and 2002. His argument was that his conviction and death sentence were unconstitutional, but y'all know them courts wasn't hearing that shit. Now, he was, like I said, he was able to get the case of Tony's story overturned, but Deborah wasn't. She was charged. Despite the numerous appeals, his death sentence upheld, in addition to him getting 20 years being added for transporting the kidnapped victim of Olin Carmichael across state lines. Like, bruh, you got to literally die. And then you still get 20 years. You gotta come back in another life and gonna be sitting there like, damn, I'm still in prison. Like, if he believes in reincarnation, he gonna have to die, come back again, still be in prison, die again, come back again, and then still have 20 years. Like, that's insane. Oh my God. On April 25th, 2002, the victims and survivors of all of, Alton and Deborah's crimes were entering the prison for his execution. He was transported from Mansfield to the Southern Ohio Correctional Facility in Lucasville, Ohio, where the execution actually took place. The room could only hold 12 people. Most standard execution rooms hold about 12 people. So everybody that came into the, prison had to go into a separate room where they could watch it on television. 2 days before his execution, he was baptized by a Dallas based televangelist, and he said his goodbyes to his family the week before. This was the first time they had visited him in the 16 years that he was in prison. And their excuse for not coming to see him was because they couldn't get a ride. That shit's funny. That tells you how fucked up your family is. They didn't want to come see you. Like, you embarrassed them. But then again, shit, look at your grandmother. The funny thing about that was, though, she was all on the news when he was on the run talking about, baby, turn yourself in. I'm sick. I don't want to leave this earth like this. It's making me sick that you doing this. Um, that's making you sick, not the part about you beating the living fuck out of him, or you teasing him, or you calling him pissy boy. That didn't make you sick, though. You told him that his mama wasn't shit and had him sleeping on the floor behind a pot-belly stove. But that wasn't sickening to you. Okay. Anyway, so Alton was given his last meal. He ordered a well done filet mignon smothered with mushrooms, fried chicken breast, a salad with French dressing, sweet potato pie topped with whipped cream, French fries, collard greens, onion rings, cornbread, broccoli with melted cheese, biscuits and gravy, and a cherry coke. Bubble guts. Homie might as well have ordered the greens, beans, potatoes, tomatoes. Like that's what I heard when I read all of that. That's literally what I heard. Like, I would legit be running to the toilet. So, before his execution, he released a letter apologizing for what he did, if you even call it an apology. Like, he stated in his letter that a lot of his wrongs that he blamed on his upbringing and his childhood, that shit wasn't an apology. On April 26, 2002, wearing a non denominational prayer cloth with crosses and stars of David over his prison jumpsuit, 46-year-old Alton Coleman laid himself on the table and he was executed by lethal injection at the Southern Ohio Correctional Facility in Lucasville, Ohio. Alton never actually expressed remorse for what he did. He just admitted that what he'd done was kind of in a convoluted manner. So they asked him if he had any last words, and he just shook his head. Now, for those of you that are unfamiliar with lethal injections, there are three chemicals used to execute a prisoner through lethal injection. One induces unconsciousness, one stops the breathing, and the third stops the heart. It's about roughly $43 worth of drugs that they use. There's 8 syringes that are used to do this, and they operate automatically once the button is pushed. It usually takes about 2 to 3 minutes for the syringes to empty. And it pretty much was the same, amount of time for Alton. So as the drug started going through his system, he started reciting the 23rd Psalm. And by the time he reached the He lead me beside the still waters, yeah, he was still because the sodium pentothal began to take effect and he completely lost consciousness. Alton Coleman was pronounced dead at 10:13 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on April 26, 2002. He was the only person in the United States at the time of his execution to have death sentences in 3 states. There were so many media outlets that were covering his execution. 43 news outlets, including TV stations and newspapers in each state where he had committed his crimes, requested credentials to be at that execution. They requested to be there to see this nigga die. During some of the interviews, the prison officials said that Alton was like a model inmate that enjoyed the media attention that he got. How the fuck are you a model inmate and you're enjoying media attention? Like, you're speaking to female reporters and trying to use this little celebrity status that you've got to get favors from, these girls, like girly magazines and money for commissary, just so that people can, interview you. Like, that don't really sound like a model inmate to me, but okay. So the grandmother of Tamika Turks, she spoke and she said that survivors won't know peace until Deborah Brown is put to death by the state of Indiana. She went on to say, one chapter has been closed, but there's another chapter. Deborah Brown. Until that's done, there can be no peace. It will never be the same because what they took from us, they cannot give back to us. 100% agree. Deborah was also facing the death sentence, but her sentence ended up getting commuted to life in prison by Governor Richard Celeste in 1991 in Ohio. He felt that because of her low IQ scores and her relationship with Alton, that Alton was more so the major influence. I agree. She was actually one of 8 Ohio death row inmates and one of 4 to have her sentence commuted by the governor the week before he left office. So instead of the death sentence, she was ultimately given 140 years of imprisonment in 2018. But she is still facing execution in Indiana. So if homegirl get transferred, oh, it's a wrap. Deborah is currently at the Ohio Reformatory for Women in Ohio. Ultimately, as crazy as it sounds, her stupidity actually saved her life. Like, her low IQ saved her life. But a lot of families from the victims, they were pissed off about that because, like Tamika Turk's own mother, she said Deborah Brown was right there with Coleman committing these same crimes. She bears the same responsibility for them and she should share his punishment. A lot of people are questioning why they did what they did and why they chose black people. Like, what was the reason for it?
And what was the reason?
I swear on this one, I don't know. Like, some people believe that it was easier for them to blend in the black communities. And honestly, you know what? I kind of get that because black people don't really get enough attention when things like that happen in their own neighborhood. So it's easier for them to do it in those neighborhoods. Like, I mean, hell, look at this podcast. You don't hear about a lot of these crimes in the black community. There's several different platforms for black podcasts and black true crime podcasts. You've got Sisters Who Kill, you got Black Girl Gone, myself. You don't, and it's there because you don't really hear about it in mainstream media. That's why I say, okay, I'm giving, a voice to those victims that have been silenced, giving a voice to those that you don't hear about in mainstream media because of shit like this. Like, this reminds me of that Jeffrey Dahmer situation and how dude literally was living in a poverty-stricken neighborhood. He was easily able to commit those crimes and murders because people of color, both black and brown people, weren't cared for as much in those neighborhoods. But let it have been some ritzy gated community and he would have been caught long before. It's simple. We're simply overlooked. So that's the only thing that I can legitimize as to why, Alton and Deborah chose the environment or chose the neighborhoods or chose the people that they did. Now, y'all want to hear something funny? Do y'all know that there was a clemency request for Alton? Clemency? Like, really, nigga? Clemency? Yeah. A previous clemency report was sent to the Honorable George V. Voinovuk back in 1994. I don't even know if that's how he says his last name, but it's going to be how he says it today because, bruh, that's a name. Voinovuk. Oof. Anyway, so back in 1994, a clemency report is sent to his office. At the time, he was the governor of the state of Ohio, and that one got denied with a unanimous decision from the parole board. So when he ended up submitting the last one right before his execution, it goes before Bob Taft, who is the new governor of Ohio. His attorney, which is Alton's attorney, David Stebbins, was present along with Alton. And Harry Walters, he was also there with the Hamilton County Prosecutor's Office. Harry was going to represent Marlene to the end, okay? He was going to represent his boo. Alton took his baby from him, so he was going to be there. So Alton's argument for clemency was based off of the last 17 years that he had been in prison. He had statements from corrections officers. One of the officers was quoted as saying that Alton was polite and forthright and never gave him any problems. Another officer was quoted as saying that he had no trouble with Alton. Um that's what the fuck prison is for. It's reform. That does not mean that your ass should get clemency, idiot. He also had Reverend Robert Evans attend the clemency hearing on his behalf. His argument was that he had known Alton from birth, and he talked about how, he was born into an environment of rejection and drugs and prostitution, and how he was abused by his grandmother, how his mother threw him away as an infant, how his grandmother was practicing voodoo, how she would, have him kill the animals and collect their body parts for her magic potions. He talked about how Alton was raised in an environment of group sex. Sometimes, that group sex included his mother and grandmother. Ew. That is the nastiest shit. So the attorney based their argument on his genetic predisposition for disordered behavior. He also blamed it on in utero poisoning due to maternal drug and alcohol abuse by his mother during their pregnancy, early maternal rejection and abandonment by his mother during vital developmental stages, severe drug and alcohol addictions, and the organic brain dysfunction that caused him to lack the ability to make non impulsive, considering, choices about his life's path. They actually argued that him being in prison was providing him with the structure that he needed that his brain wasn't able to provide. Okay. So the Ohio Parole Board ended up getting letters from the American Civil Liberties Union, the American Friends Services Committee, Human Rights Watch, and 14 other individuals. They take all of that into consideration, but the Ohio Parole Board voted 10-0 that the clemency be denied, as it freaking should be. You really thought you what what strand of crack were you smoking? All right, y'all. It is time for Fair or Foul, where we look at the sentencing to determine just how fucked up or how good our justice system truly is. As for Alton's sentencing, absolutely fair, like fair as hell. I talk shit about the justice system, but on this one, they did right. Honestly, the fact that he was able to spend 17 years on death row is astonishing to me. Like, you picked people at random. You molested your own family. You raped little girls. You killed people for absolutely no reason. You were a petty thief. Half the people that you assaulted and accosted and the people that you hurt probably would have helped you, and hurting them wouldn't have been necessary. Hell, majority of them did help you. They gave you places to sleep, food to eat, and the fact that because you were high off your ass or because of some anger issues that you had from something that happened in your childhood that you decided to take it out on innocent people that didn't even know you. Yeah, that was $43 well spent by the government to get rid of your punk ass. Like, we all have fucked up pasts, okay? We all have fucked up childhoods to an extent. Lord knows I've had a fucked up childhood. I grew up being molested by my mother's husband, but I wasn't out here killing motherfuckers. I wasn't out here raping people. I fucking went to counseling to deal with my shit so I wouldn't grow to hate my mother and other family. Like, yes, I've had situations where I've been teased because my clothes didn't fit or my hair was a mess, but I use that to motivate myself to do better, to be better, to become better, not off somebody or torture them and they're innocent. You can't always use the it's the product of my environment as an excuse. It don't fly all the time. There are so many people that build themselves up and do better with their lives despite their upbringing. You could have gone to school, you could have gotten a job. At one point, shit, you did have a job. Hell, you even got married. You were living your life on the right path all but 10 days. But you could have done things differently. So yes, your sentencing was absolutely fair. You manipulated a 21-year-old woman into being with you and thinking that she couldn't make it without your sick ass. As for Deborah, do I think that her sentence is fair? Yeah, only because of the fact that there were moments where you could have made a choice. You literally told the judge that you enjoyed killing a 7-year-old girl that did nothing to you. You took those babies 40 minutes away from their comfort zone to torture them. You had the option to walk away several times, but you didn't. I get having, DPD and depending on someone to take care of you, but you could have easily gone back home to your mother. You could have easily gone back home to your family. Those times when he was off doing his shit and you wasn't with him, you could have stayed gone, but you chose not to. You had a whole ass fiance. That was somebody that was taking care of you. You got lucky having your sentence overturned to life in prison without parole. And the fact that you followed this man around. Yes, you were young. Yes, you were in love. And I understand that. But in life, we all have choices. You knew right from wrong because you lived 21 years. 21 years living your life right before you got with this man. Don't get me wrong, I empathize with the fact that, you got a low IQ score, but you are a black woman chasing after a man that was abusive to you, a man that was beating you, drugging you, and basically making you drink all the damn time. You could have walked away after you saw what he was doing because you were supposedly blind to it. After you saw what he was doing, you could have just said, nah, this ain't for me, and just gone back home. But you didn't. So now we see what happens. So in both of these cases, fair, 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 fair. All right, y'all. That is all for this week's episode of the Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast. You can follow the show on the various streams on Instagram and TikTok at Infamous One Podcast. That's with a number one, by the way, not spelled out. And you can leave a review there. On Twitter, it's Infamous One Pod, also with a number one, not spelled out, where you can leave a review. leave a review. On Facebook, you can send a friend request to the page, The Infamous Ones, or you can join the private discussion group, The Infamous Ones discussion group. But as always, if you don't answer the questions, your ass is going to be sitting outside talking about, let me in, let me in. Nope. Answer the damn questions. Okay. Oh, speaking of the Facebook group, I will be doing my first live episode on August 31st at 6 p.m. And guess what? It is absolutely free. Free 99. Yes. But there is a catch. You have to be in the group to be able to get this special episode. Okay. So get your asses in the group, answer them questions because it is going to be a live episode August 31st. And the show streams on multiple streaming services like Odyssey, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, and so on and so on. So leave a review. It only takes a few seconds. Like, damn, review. review. Okay. And speaking of reviews, let's get into a few of those. Leave a review. Uh, sorry, I got to do my little subliminal leave a review. All right, so this review comes from Apple Podcast. It is from Coco, the esthetician. Ooh, shit, that is a word. And it says, "Great show. This is an amazing podcast, and I'm so sad I'm all the way caught up. I listen to you while I'm working, and I even tell my clients about you. I'm an esthetician. Haha, see, I said it right. And so listening to one episode is the same as doing one facial. So I just binge and work. Thank you for getting me through my workday. If you're looking for a new show, this is it. Can't wait until the next episode. Aw, thank you, Sugars. I love Coco. She's so sweet. And yes, I'm gonna keep going, no worries. Shout out to your career because that's a word, especially when you've been drinking. I've been drinking, and that's definitely a word that I'm struggling with right now. The next review is also from Apple Podcast, and it is from someone named Wookie. Okay. It's captioned "My new fave." Girl, you be eating these stories up. I absolutely love the delivery and the stories that you tell. I'm writing this review as I'm listening to the podcast episode because I definitely need for you to continue on this journey. We need more people to tell our stories like they need to be told. Keep up the good work. Why, thank you. I appreciate it. I be trying to put my little spin on it. So y'all just stick with me. I do got a few little surprises when I come back from my little vacation. Like I said, new sound effects and intros and all of that. So y'all just sit tight and wait to see. Y'all are gonna get a bonus episode tomorrow, but it ain't gonna be this long, y'all, because I promise you, it's like 3 o'clock in the morning and a chick is tired and I've been drinking because I'm celebrating the 21st episode. So, I had to, extend it out, make it a little bit longer, whatever, whatever. So the episode for tomorrow, I promise you it's not going to be this long because it's a bonus episode. So quit being greedy. Okay. If you want to support the show, or if you're feeling the spirit, meaning, that liquor that we've been sipping on tonight, or in my case, this Prosecco wine, click the link at the bottom of the screen from whatever app you're listening to this episode on and hit listener support to subscribe or donate. You can also donate via the Cash App at $infamous1pod. That's $INFAMOUSONEPOD. Donations go toward research because this shit is expensive, pulling all these records and whatnot. Okay. And as always, shout out to the popcorn donation. I love when y'all send me popcorn money. That's so much love. Thank you. Real quick, I do want to take a quick moment to send prayers to a fellow podcaster, Mara from Sisters Who Kill. Many of you hear her beautiful melodious voice each week along with Taz, and I know this last week has been very hard for her as she has lost someone very near and dear. So please, everyone, let's take a moment of silence for Christian Chestnut, a loving father who lost his life on June 7th, 2024. Mara, my beautiful sister, I pray for your healing and solace during this time for you and your family. Hashtag justice for Christian Chestnut. If you have a case that you want to hear more on that you feel has been ignored in the Black community, if you want to inquire about ad space, or if you want to, leave a review, send an email to infamous1pod@gmail.com. That's INFAMOUSONEPOD@gmail.com. Once again, people, please share, share, share. Sharing is caring. Review, review, review. You can do it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Odyssey, Amazon, Facebook. There should be no reason why you can't leave a review. Okay? Until then, y'all know what it is. I'm your girl Kay. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you Thursday with a bonus episode. Peace.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast hosted by Kay. Be sure to like and comment on your favorite podcast platform and subscribe so that you never miss an episode.